Dust motes are dancing in the thin shafts of light, piercing the gloom of a storeroom at the Villa Mondragon, just southeast of Rome. It's dead quiet except for the shifting of old leather and parchment. Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish-born antiquarian bookseller, is practically shoulder-deep in heavy wooden chests of manuscripts. See, the Jesuit owners are quietly selling off these theological volumes to raise funds, and Voynich, he's hunting for hidden treasures completely buried in the forgotten stacks. It's 1912, and his hand brushes against something unexpected. He pulls this small, surprisingly thick, completely undecorated codex out from the bottom of a chest. The parchment cover is incredibly soft, worn down from centuries of handling. But when he flips it open, he doesn't find standard theological text. No. Instead, he's staring right at a book filled with impossible hybrid plants that literally do not exist on Earth, and a completely unknown, flowing script that matches absolutely zero catalogs in the known world. So let's actually look at this physical object for a second. It's modest, really, roughly 23.5 centimeters tall by 16 wide. You've got about 240 surviving pages made of calfskin vellum tucked between plain covers, filled with iron gall ink and thin washes of color. But here's the kicker. What we have isn't even the complete puzzle. The foliation shows glaring gaps. At least 14 leaves were ripped out or lost long before the modern historical record of this book even begins. Now, look at the unnerving perfection of the writing itself. The text just flows left to right in a really fluent hand, using about 20 to 30 distinct characters. But here is the truly bizarre part. There are 0 visible corrections. No hesitations, no crossed out words. None. Think about that. Have you ever written pages and pages without a single mistake? This suggests either a painstakingly meticulous fair copy or a writer working entirely without the friction of composition. It's almost as if the language was just pouring out of them perfectly on the very first try. Scholars conventionally chop up this bizarre imagery into distinct categories just to make sense of it. You've got a herbal section with those impossible frankenplants, an astronomical section absolutely packed with circular diagrams and star fields, pharmaceutical jars drawn like glass sitting right next to detached roots, and pages of dense text headed by stars like some sort of alien recipe book. There are even massive fold-out pages, up to 6 panels wide, showing huge circular structures joined by causeways and spouting towers. But the sheer strangeness of the balneological section, that is deeply unnerving. Just let the visual of these connected green pools sink in for a second. We're looking at crowds of small, stylized female figures wading in these emerald fluids, and they're all interconnected by tubes and fleshy, organic-looking channels. It frankly looks less like a medieval manuscript and way more like a schematic for some sprawling biological machine. And the physical object leaves this wild, centuries-long breadcrumb trail. Through radiocarbon dating, we know the calfskin vellum was prepped between 1404 and 1438. From there, it traces a ghost-like path. Ultraviolet light actually revealed the erased signature of its first known owner, an apothecary who died in 1622. A desperate letter asking for translation help pops up in 1639. Then poof, it vanishes into the Jesuit archives, only to be yanked out by Voynich in 1912, finally landing safely in the climate-controlled stacks of Yale University in 1969. Along that crazy journey, the mythos surrounding it just grew and grew. A letter attached to the manuscript from 1665 reports this secondhand story, that the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II bought the book for a staggering 600 ducats because he was convinced it was the secret work of the legendary 13th century polymath Roger Bacon. The thing is, neither the massive purchase nor the Bacon attribution has ever been verified. It's pure, unadulterated hearsay that just managed to cling to the vellum like a barnacle over the centuries. So here's where we hit the absolute statistical paradox. When you run mathematical analyses on the text, it totally obeys standard word frequency regularities, broadly resembling natural spoken human language. But at the exact same time, it displays unusually low character entropy, and words repeat in adjacent positions in a way humans simply don't ever speak. It wears the mathematical mask of a natural language, yet bizarrely lacks the internal chaos to actually be one. And this paradox brilliantly illustrates the graveyard of defeated cryptologists who threw their entire lives at these unyielding pages. We are talking about brilliant, top-tier minds here, William Friedman, the American cryptographer who literally helped break Japanese codes in World War II, worked on this for decades with dedicated study groups. He walked away with nothing but a guess that it might be a constructed language. Decades of theories, from 16th century nonsense generators to complex anagrams, all end up disputed or completely unresolved. But, occasionally, the world really thought it had the answer. In 1921, there was massive global excitement. William Remain Newbold, a philosopher at the University of Pennsylvania, proudly announced he had finally cracked it. The code he claimed wasn't the letters themselves, but microscopic marks hidden within the very strokes of the ink. A tiny Latin shorthand proving the manuscript contained the world-altering scientific discoveries of Roger Bacon. Well, 10 years later, philologist John Matthews Manley completely pulled the rug out from under that theory. With devastating proof, Manley demonstrated that the meticulously decoded language Newbold had spent a decade translating wasn't a language at all. Those microscopic shorthand marks, they were just random natural cracks in the dried ink caused by age. Think about how heartbreaking that is. Newbold had literally spent years translating the physical deterioration of the manuscript into a masterpiece of his own imagination. Now, you might be thinking, surely our modern era of artificial intelligence would easily conquer this, right? Yale released complete high-resolution scans. We have exact facsimiles. And constantly, machine learning teams step up to the plate, loudly announcing statistical matches to Hebrew, Turkish, or obscure Romance languages. But just like the cracked ink in the 1920s, these modern algorithms are just finding patterns in the noise. Every single claim is swiftly dismantled and rejected by peer review and the Binex curators. The book remains an absolute fortress. In the climate-controlled stacks at New Haven, the codex sits in a gray archival box on a shelf, and when a reader opens it under the lamp, the green pools and the unnamed plants come up bright against the parchment, just sitting there, waiting for a reader who may never arrive. Or perhaps, what if it was never meant to be read at all?